Oh my goodness. I'm like super excited to have you on this podcast.
Thank you, Edward. I'm excited to be here.
So everybody, this is my name is Edward Ferguson. If you don't know me, I am the founder of HTown Handshakes. It's a Houston organization crafted to help to build and to enhance the stories of local businesses down here in Houston. And so today I have my special guest, Irene. Am I saying it correctly?
Yes, you are.
All right. And she actually she is founder of Lovescaping, and she gave me this amazing book, but I'm gonna let her tell her story as we jump into this podcast. So without further ado, Miss Irene, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to share my life's work with your audience. My name is Irene Greaves, and I am the author and founder of Lovescaping. Lovescaping is the work of my life. It's my philosophy of life. And really, the journey starts from the moment I was born. I'm from Venezuela. And growing up,
That's for the people back home.
yes, that's right. Growing up, my oldest sister is a specially abled individual human being, and I became the person I am today thanks to growing up with her. She taught me that there's no such thing as being normal, that every human being is unique and different, and that we all become enriched when we embrace one another. And she taught me how to be patient and compassionate and empathetic. And that experience really informed my view of love. I left my home country 19 years ago. And in that time, I've had the great privilege and opportunity to live all around the world. So I've lived in Europe, Africa, Asia, Central America, and now here in North America, always working in education and community development. And what I learned from all that living and loving across differences is that love transcends all differences. And love is not a feeling, love is an action. And so that became the basis of my philosophy of life, which I coined lovescaping. I realized that what makes us human is love. But where do we learn to love? Where did you learn to love, Edward?
Uh, So how do we define love? Because when we talk about love, I remember being a kid and it's like, I love my toys. I love this TV show.
Yeah.
And then at some point it's like your parents say, I love you, and then you say, oh yeah, I love you back.
Right.
So I guess that's kind of like the foundational
Yeah.
ones.
So you bring up the next question, which is, yeah, what is love? How do you define it, right? But where do you even learn it? And a lot of people say at home, growing up with my family. But not everybody has that experience, right? What happens if you grow up in a home where you are told that you're loved and you're abused? And you grow up thinking that love is abuse because that's all you know. Or, to your point, what is the definition of love that is being taught at home, right? So we really have to start here with this question of where do we learn to love and what is love? And those are the questions that I aim to tackle through Lovescaping. So Lovescaping is my humble attempt to operationalize love so that we can teach it. And what I realized from all these experiences in all these different parts of the world, that there were ingredients that allowed us to love one another that came up even in very different places. What allowed us to love one another? That's how the 15 pillars of lovescaping revealed themselves. So it's really been a process of putting my life experience into a framework, which I called lovescaping, based on these 15 pillars. They're all values, and now back into practice. So my mission is to teach love consciously and intentionally, the same way we teach math, reading, and science. And so I coined this term lovescaping in 2015. It's actually going to be the 10-year anniversary of the birth of lovescaping
Wow.
right now in May. Yes, and I wrote a paper. I was finishing my master's in education at the University of Pennsylvania, and that's when I had my epiphany. I realized that, again, love is the essential condition of our humanity. And I introduced this framework called lovescaping to really make it an actionable practice, to make love an actionable practice through these 15 pillars. And so since 2018, I've been in Houston and I've been working to bring lovescaping to as many communities as possible, especially in education, in the field of education. So we work primarily with schools and districts. Imagine what our world would look like if love were a subject in schools.
Ooh, that's powerful.
Yeah. And that's what we've been doing. We've been teaching children. not only children, but also, teenagers and also teachers and families, giving them the tools to unlearn where necessary. Because again, going back to that question, what is love and where did you learn to love? Maybe there are things from your past and your childhood that were not very loving, and you don't want to repeat that pattern. You want to break that vicious cycle. You want to do it better. We always use Maya Angelou's words, do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. And that is the invitation that I invite everybody to really think deeply about: where did you learn to love? What does love mean to you? And how does it relate to the Lovescaping framework and how we can do it better? So our mission is teaching love to communities around the world to reclaim our humanity and build a better world.
That's just it's just beautiful. As we're having this conversation and as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about that foundational component that you mentioned, even like earlier in the conversation, about just understanding what is love and what it really means. Because I can tell you now, I have some teens growing up, and it's like the definition of love that I have for them is different than the definition of love that they have for us as parents. And it's just that understanding. It's like I say to them in the morning. It's like, I love you, and they're like, I love you too.
But what an opportunity, right, for families to have these conversations. And, what does love mean to you? And let's look at the pillars. Is there empathy there? Is there humility? Is there forgiveness? Is there gratitude? And how are you consciously as a family practicing these pillars? So these are all values, I would argue universal values that anybody can adopt and practice. And so we work a lot with families, but we also work with companies. How do you build a culture of love at your company? How do you resolve conflict? How do you effectively communicate? These are all skills, core life skills that I believe we take for granted. We can all agree that love is the answer. But where do we learn to love, right? We take for granted the fact that, how do you resolve conflict? How do you communicate your feelings and your needs? How do you manage your emotions when you are triggered? And so that's our starting point. It's self-regulation. How do I manage my emotions so that I can respond instead of react? Right? Because when we react, we tend to say or do things that we regret. So it's really giving people tools to grow their self-love and strengthen and improve their personal relationships, whether it's in a romantic relationship, mother to child, father to son, in the context of the workplace. How do you improve the relationship with your colleagues? How do you build a culture of love in any organization where you're at? And that's what we do. We provide workshops, we provide resources for anybody. Yeah, our earliest lovescapers are 3-year-olds. We have an early childhood component, but then again, we work with adults. We work a lot with parents and families and teachers and in companies too. So it's the beauty of the lovescaping framework is that it's applicable to any individual and any community that wants to improve and create safe places where people can thrive.
I'm going to go a little bit off script in terms of this. So this is a question that I didn't ask her because we have our prep time and things like that. So I was just recently having a conversation with a business acquaintance. We were talking about how the economy is right now and how things are challenging for a lot of people. And so those challenges that adults have with life, it translates into what life looks like at home with
Absolutely.
their families. And then I can turn it to something either positive if the person is more support and if that's their foundational person, or it can turn into something negative in terms of some sort of habits and addictions and things like that. In terms of lovescaping, with all this stuff going on, how do you foresee impacting what's going on in society?
Hmm. What a great question. And I don't mean to say this to mean in a kind of a self-serving way, but I really, really do believe that lovescaping is the answer because I've seen the impact that it has. I've been in rooms where there's so much animosity, where there's tension, where there's dislike, where there's, you know, people don't trust each other. And I've seen the energy shift from that and to, walls coming down and people seeing across and seeing their humanity. And that's the power of lovescaping, that we have developed this very intentional methodology where people can get to, really. express how they feel and who they are and get to know each other through the pillars, right? So, what does it mean to have humility? To understand that we all have a frame of reference, and all frames of reference are valid because they're based on your lived experience, right? So, mine is not better or worse than yours, it's simply different. That understanding alone changes the world, because when I understand that, I'm going to be able to listen to you and put myself in your shoes, to empathize. If I believe that my frame of reference is the right one and you're wrong, I'm never, ever going to listen to you, to try to step into your shoes, to really see and feel what the world looks like from your experience. And I think this is what changes the world. And so, with everything happening in the world, I mean, I think really you see fear. Fear is so powerful, and fear is one of the antitheses of it, the antithesis of love. And fear is very powerful, Edward. Fear sells, fear moves people, and it's a choice we get to make. Do we want to operate from fear, or do we want to operate from love, right? Think about it as a parent. It's very easy to yell and scream and threaten to get what you want, or for a teacher to do the same, or a boss to use fear, right? And all the employees are afraid and they do what the boss
You
says.
see all those stories on Instagram.
Exactly. I mean, we see
A lot of them.
right, right. But nobody flourishes under fear. We are only in compliance. The minute you have an out and you can leave, you will go, you will leave. With love, everyone flourishes. But guess what? Love is much harder work. And that's one of my missions with Lovescaping, is to debunk this idea that love is fluff, that love is easy, that love is, oh, hippie, peace and love, da, 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 da. No. Actually, love is really hard work, because you know what? It takes much more time and energy to take a step back, to self-regulate, to be patient, and then to take the time to listen, to be empathetic, and to really think about what you're going to say before you say it. So it's much harder work, but this choice changes everything. I want my students and my children and my colleagues to listen to me because they love and respect me, not because they fear me. And so I really believe that lovescaping is the answer and the solution to an increasingly polarized world where we are not even having conversations.
Wow. Wow. It's insanely deep. In terms of, so we are so I'm going to ask you two questions. So one side of it is, we are a business-driven podcast, and there are a lot of business owners out there going through these challenges. Can you give us a little bit of insight in terms of how we can leverage lovescaping in our lives as entrepreneurs and business owners?
Yeah.
And then the other side of it is, how can we incorporate more of this in terms of, where to begin,
Yeah.
essentially?
Yeah. And I am an entrepreneur, and I've had Lovescaping LLC since 2019, and so I'm a small business owner as well. And I know it's challenging. It's really challenging, and I think one of the biggest challenges, at least for me personally, especially starting out, was really overcoming a lot of self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And I know that a lot of people, and especially a lot of women, we kind of suffer from this, right? It's like really believing that we're not smart enough, or that we're not good enough, or that we can't do it. Or imagine like this kind of revolutionary idea, like, can we teach love, and can I make a living doing this? I mean, it was really hard to take that leap of faith and say, I'm going to do this because this is what I believe in and this is the work of my life. And so even for me, it was a process of really strengthening my own self-love and believing in myself and having the self-confidence to know, no, I can do this. And this is what I'm called. This is my purpose in life. This is my life's purpose. And so it was a process of really trusting myself, and trust is one of the lovescaping pillars. And it's an incredibly vulnerable thing to put yourself out there. So actually, the cover of my book is the illustration for the pillar of vulnerability. So it's a woman opening her heart. And I chose this to be the cover of the book because it was a very vulnerable thing to do, to write a book, publish a book, put myself out there. And so it's a courageous act. And so that's one of the things that, I think for a lot of people, you have to start with that strengthening your self-belief. And I think the lovescaping framework that I came up with was actually very helpful in helping me overcome a lot of those doubts and limiting beliefs that I had about my ability. and my experience, you know? So now I can say I've strengthened myself, and I can overcome any obstacles. And where to start the journey? I mean, definitely with my book. I think the book is, I call it my manifesto of love. It's really the beginning. It's where yeah,
Where can we find the book?
it's available on Amazon in 3 versions. So you can paperback, Kindle, and Audible. And I actually narrated the Audible version of it. So those, I know there's a lot of people who love Audible. Yeah.
I'm raising my hand.
Okay.
I'm one of those people.
So maybe you'll listen to it. Yeah, you have your paperback. So I think this is the starting point. And really the book is not meant to just, you read it, but also reflect on it, take notes. I always encourage people to have conversations with their families, with their friends. As you're reading, think about how does it compare and contrast to your experience, to your definition of love. And as you're reading the pillars, really reflect and think about how can I intentionally practice this pillar in my life? You know what? I need to work on humility. My ego is too big. I need to lower it, right? Or, you know what? I need to work on honesty. I'm not very honest. Like to really use it as a tool as you're reading to self-reflect and see how can you adopt these pillars and how can you bring them to yourself first, but then to your community and to your small business as well.
Wow, simply amazing. Uh, on your website, what is your website?
Lovescaping.org.
Lovescaping.org. So can we find the 10 pillars on your website?
Yes, and they're 15. They're 15
15.
pillars. Yes,
Oh,
yes. You can find all the information on our website. And in addition to the book, I'm glad you mentioned the where to start the journey. After reading the book, we have an online course, and this is for any adult out there. It's a self-paced online course where it takes you through activities and exercises to really practice the 15 pillars in your life. And so you can apply it to your family, to your business, to your community. And it's a great tool if you really want to strengthen that kind of self-love in your relationships and you're like, okay, I've read the book, I'm curious, I want to do more, I want to dig deeper. Take our online course because it guides you through each of the pillars. So there's a combination of videos and articles and prompts for you to reflect and write as you're going through it, exercises that are really thought-provoking that will encourage you to unlearn where necessary. And that's one of our principles, unlearning. It will invite you to be intentional. That's another of our principles, intentionality. How are we intentional about practicing these 15 pillars? And then in that process, you become a more self-aware individual because we become self-aware by questioning, right, Edward? If we're always doing the same thing, we're just kind of perpetuating the status quo and we resign to this, oh, well, that's just how I am. Oh, I've always had a bad mood and I yell when I get angry. That's just who I am.
we hear that all the time.
We hear that all the time. Or, oh, that's how I was raised and I turned out fine. We hear that a lot. And to me, I invite that curiosity and okay, let's think about, was that the best way? Is that the healthiest way? Is there a better way? And so to have that humility and that self-awareness to say, you know what? I can always improve. As a human being, that's the beauty. We can always change. We always have the ability to do better when we know better. And so the invitation is to start the journey there with those resources. And in addition to the course, we also have additional resources for parents. We have a guidebook for parents to practice lovescaping at home. So I encourage you to use that too with your kids. And everything's available on Amazon, and you can find it on our website. And it's a guidebook that has a weekly schedule, Monday through Sunday, for each pillar of lovescaping. It has specific prompts and questions for you as a family to share stories and have conversations around the pillars. So, for example, under humility, it says, share about a time when you learn better. Now that you know better, you can do better. Share a story about a time when that actually applied to your life, or share a story about a time where you made a mistake and you apologized for it. And so, having these intentional
I
moments,
can imagine how vulnerable that would make somebody just to admit any wrongdoing in a scenario.
but how important it is, right, Edward? Because we are flawed, imperfect human beings, right?
Mhm.
This idea that we're perfect, or especially if you're an authority figure or like as a parent even, right? No, we make mistakes. What an opportunity to model that vulnerability and that humility to our children to say, you know what? I made a mistake. I lost my cool. I'm sorry I yelled at you. That was wrong. And so and then we say, I'm being humble right now. I'm being vulnerable. And so we're mentioning the pillars. We're making them conscious practice in our day-to-day life.
So I have this thing that I chat with my kids about. Your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your legacy. And
Yes.
so,
I love that. I love that. And I think it's so important, right, that we, especially children and especially teenagers, you mentioned you have, it's hard to be a teenager in this day and age, right? We have so much, I mean, you have social media, you have comparisons, you have it's really tough, and I think more than ever, we need these spaces of intentional human connection where children can be seen, heard, and valued. Because ultimately, when you believe in yourself and you have a group of people who believe in you, that strengthens your self-love and your self-confidence, and it will strengthen your thoughts, right? And it will strengthen, then it will lead to good actions in the world. So how do we make lovescaping a conscious practice for everybody?
wow, that's just amazing information. So, um, so I know we've been on for a little bit. So, but before we bring it to a close, I want to hear more about how we can um, get more involved in lovescaping. Where can we find those resources out there? And if you have any events or any activities coming up, feel free to share that with the audience.
Yeah, so we have started actually doing a lot more kind of social media outreach and work. So we're doing lives on Instagram every Thursday from 5 p.m. Central until 6 p.m. And we do half hour in English and the second half hour in Spanish. And where we are really inviting the community to ask their questions and have these conversations around lovescaping. How are you practicing the pillars? When you read the book, when you take the course, when you do the guidebook at home, what impact is it having in the family? So definitely follow us. We are on Instagram at lovescaping. We are also on LinkedIn. We're going to start doing more webinars too on LinkedIn, just to showcase the work that we do in schools, in companies, and of course, through our website, you can reach out to us, and really inquire about potentially bringing us to do a retreat at your company or a workshop. If you want to do a culture building workshop, you want something for employee morale to boost, to build that culture of love, to improve the relationships among the coworkers. We do retreats. But we also do shorter, 1.5 hour workshops. That's our kind of our earliest or our shortest engagement, because we need that time to really build this safe space. And so if you follow us, you will know how to get engaged, how to engage with our work, and email us to figure out how to bring us to your organization. We work a lot with community centers as well. And we also work in jails. I've been working with incarcerated women this for the past since last year, and it's really incredible work because it's the work of healing. Love is the work of healing, and so it's really applicable to anyone. And I just encourage you to follow us. And I recently had the opportunity to give a TEDx talk here in Houston, and that was published a few weeks ago. And so it's on our if you go to our website lovescaping.org, you will see it front there. So that's another way to help us spread the mission. Watch it. It's 10 minutes. Watch my TEDx talk, share it with somebody else, because really what we hope is that, that this allows us to grow, to continue our work. Because again, as a small business owner, it's hard to keep afloat sometimes. And there's a lot of changing factors in the schools and the district. So we really want to be able to offer this to anybody. And so that's a very concrete way to support us, by getting the book, watching the TEDx talk, and just follow us and engage with us.
Simply beautiful, simply amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, Irene.
Thank you, Edward.